A 61-year-old fisherman from Apalachicola, Florida, cast his net just after sunrise like he had done for the past 40 years. But this time, something caught in the ropes shimmered, like it didn't belong to this world. As he pulled it closer, he saw it. A golden cage, weathered but unmistakably ornate, engraved with symbols he'd never seen before. Symbols that seemed to pulse in the morning light. At first, he thought it was some strange artifact lost in the tides. But when he unlocked the delicate latch, what flew out was no ordinary bird. It screamed, piercing, unnatural, and vanished into the sky, leaving behind nothing but a spiral of wind and stunned silence on his boat. Authorities arrived within hours. When biologists finally identified the creature, they could hardly believe what they were seeing. Would you have dared to open that cage? Subscribe for more stories that uncover the strange and the unexplained. Johnny Merrill had fished the waters off Apalachicola, Florida, longer than some of the docks had been standing. At 61, his hands were rough and sunburnt, his shoulders permanently bent from years of hauling nets and crab traps. Locals knew him as steady and solitary, a man who spoke little and worked hard. Each morning, before the gulls even stirred, Johnny would push his rusted skiff out into the bay, its hull groaning with age and memory. He didn't need a compass. He knew every current and underwater ridge by instinct. The morning of July 11th had been unremarkable in every sense. A warm mist clung to the surface of the water, diffusing the sunrise into a soft golden blur. The air smelled of salt and mudflats. Johnny had his usual thermos of bitter coffee and a radio crackling with static and old country songs. He was alone, as he preferred, dragging his nets just past the eastern channel markers. Then something shifted. At first, it was just resistance in the line. Nothing new. A snag, maybe. A clump of seaweed. He grunted and pulled, expecting the usual gunk, but as the net surfaced, sunlight bounced off something metallic beneath the mesh. It glinted, bright and unnatural. He leaned over and squinted, confused. Tangled among oyster shells and barnacles, resting in the center of the net like a captured jewel, was a cage. Johnny frowned, brushing aside muck and bits of coral. The object was unlike anything he'd seen. A small cage, no larger than a shoebox, seemingly made of gold but dulled by time. Intricate symbols were etched into its bars, spirals, arrows, eyes. They seemed too deliberate, too uniform to be accidental. They didn't look like letters from any alphabet he recognized. As he held it up, water dripped from its corners, and the thing almost hummed in his hand. He turned it over gently. The base was sealed, no openings. A tiny latch rested on one side, just above a hinge that had corroded slightly. The cage wasn't locked with a key, just a clasp, easily flicked open with a thumb. But Johnny didn't touch it, not yet. Instead, he set it down on a towel near the stern and stared. There was something about it that stirred unease in him. Not fear exactly, but a gnawing discomfort, like when you're sure you've forgotten something important. He lit a cigarette with trembling fingers and watched the cage, as if expecting it to move. An hour passed. The sun climbed. The object glistened. And the more Johnny looked at it, the more he felt something inside. A flicker of motion, a subtle shift. As if something within the golden bars had just turned its head. His instincts warred within him. Logic said it was junk, a fancy trinket thrown overboard, maybe part of some artist's installation or sunken ceremonial artifact. But something deeper, older, whispered that it wasn't that simple. Still, he couldn't just leave it. Johnny was no stranger to the sea coughing up oddities. He'd once found a prosthetic leg. Another time, a crate of unopened soda bottles from the 1950s. But nothing like this. The cage felt ancient and alive in a way he couldn't explain. By noon, the wind picked up. Small waves lapped at the skiff's hull, and the air carried the scent of ozone, like a storm was forming miles out. Johnny decided to head back. He wrapped the cage in a tarp and wedged it behind the captain's seat. As he started the engine, a sharp, high-pitched sound, like a distant whistle, sliced through the air. He turned quickly, eyes scanning the water. Nothing. Just a sudden quiet that was somehow louder than the noise before. The ride back was tense. He didn't dare look at the object again. Once docked, he carried it to his truck, tucked it under a towel on the passenger seat, and drove home slowly, his eyes flicking nervously to the bundle beside him. Johnny lived in a modest stilt house on the edge of town. its walls lined with nets and faded photos of fish almost too big to believe. He set the cage on his kitchen table, cleared the space around it, and poured himself a strong glass of bourbon. Then he just stared. Even in the dim kitchen light, the cage seemed to glow faintly. And then it moved. It was unmistakable. Something inside shifted just enough to catch his eye. A flicker, a flash. He stumbled back, knocking over the chair. From inside, a small, dry screech echoed through the bars. Not mechanical, not wind. It was a living sound, raspy, panicked, furious. The cage trembled. Johnny hesitated, then reached out slowly, fingers brushing the latch. He paused again, hearing the sound grow louder, more urgent. Something alive wanted out. He pulled. The latch clicked. The door swung open with a creak like old hinges. In a blur of gold and red, the creature burst forth. It shot into the air, wings unfurling with a power that rattled the hanging mugs above the stove. Johnny fell back, shielding his face as a whirlwind of wind and screeching spiraled through the room. The thing wasn't large, maybe the size of a hawk, but its feathers shimmered with colors he couldn't name, like oil on water, constantly shifting. Its eyes glowed an unnatural yellow, and its beak opened to emit a scream so sharp and high it made the windows buzz. Then it was gone. It smashed through the screen door, soared into the open sky, and vanished beyond the treetops, leaving behind a trail of feathers that burned faintly at the edges. For several seconds, Johnny just lay there, chest heaving, unable to move. His coffee mug shattered beside him. The bourbon glass had tipped, amber liquid soaking into the floorboards. What had he just released? He called the sheriff first, but the dispatcher laughed it off. Some exotic bird, maybe a macaw or something, got loose from one of them rich folks. He knew what he saw wasn't a parrot, so he called someone else. His niece, Valerie, a biologist at the Gulf Marine Lab. She knew him well enough to understand when his voice trembled. 2 hours later, she was at his door. Johnny showed her the cage. She examined the markings, took pictures, ran her fingers over the etchings. She said it looked pre-Columbian, but couldn't place the script. Then he told her what had happened. The scream, the feathers, the light. She didn't interrupt. She just listened, frowning. Valerie asked if he'd saved a feather. He pointed to one stuck to the ceiling fan. It looked ordinary, but when she touched it, it sparked faintly at her fingertip. That changed everything. She took it with tweezers, sealed it in a plastic bag, and told him not to touch anything else. "I'm getting the lab involved," she said, already dialing on her phone. "Uncle Johnny, I don't think you just found an exotic pet." By morning, 2 unmarked vehicles were parked outside Johnny's house. Scientists in field gear and latex gloves combed his kitchen, took samples of the cage, scraped the floor, dusted for traces. Valerie had brought in a colleague who specialized in ornithology and rare species classification. He took one look at the feather and went silent. Johnny watched from the porch, sipping coffee with shaking hands. No one had told him anything yet, but he could see it in their faces. The same disbelief he had felt, now mirrored in professionals who had spent decades studying the natural world. Later that afternoon, they gathered in his living room. Valerie sat beside him, her expression unreadable. "We ran the preliminary tests," one of the researchers said. "Genetic analysis is underway, but the mitochondrial structure is unusual." "Unusual how?" Johnny asked. "It doesn't match any known bird on record, but it bears similarities to a species classified extinct since 1891, the tercellus hawk. It was never fully documented, only described in journal entries by explorers in the Andes. No confirmed sightings, no photographs. Most thought it was a myth." Johnny blinked. "But it was real?" They nodded. "And I let it out?" A pause. Then solemnly, "Yes, you released a creature that hasn't been seen in over a century. And based on the feather's composition, it wasn't just surviving, it was evolving." The living room fell into a charged silence. The air seemed heavier now, like the walls themselves understood the magnitude of what had happened. Johnny sat motionless, his eyes fixed on the empty golden cage resting on the kitchen table. The tercellus hawk, a name he had never heard before, now tied irrevocably to his own. Valerie leaned forward, clasping her hands. "Uncle Johnny, this is bigger than any of us imagined. If that creature survived all this time hidden somewhere, some isolated ecosystem we've never mapped, it could mean others are still out there. Another scientist, Dr. Reese Mandel, chimed in. It's not just about finding a rare species. This could reshape what we understand about avian evolution, about environmental survivability. If the Tursalis hawk still exists, it means entire branches of taxonomy might need re-evaluation. Johnny didn't reply. He just reached for his cap and pulled it low over his brow. Where do you think it came from? He asked, almost in a whisper. That was the question no one could answer. Doctor, Mandel paced toward the cage and examined the carvings again. These symbols, they don't match any known language. We sent photos to a few linguists, and one of them said it resembled Muisca iconography, but that's Colombian. And this came out of a Florida bay. Another scientist, a quiet woman named Lara, added, and the gold alloy? It's not consistent with modern metallurgy. There are impurities, ancient techniques. But the corrosion suggests it's been underwater for decades, maybe more. Johnny frowned. So what's it doing here? They didn't know. Not yet. By nightfall, Valerie stayed behind while the others packed up samples and drove back to the lab. She sat beside Johnny on the porch, sipping her third coffee of the day. You sure you didn't dream this? She teased gently. He cracked a smile. The first of the day. Wish I had. Still can't believe it screamed like that. Sound went right through me. Like it was more than just a bird. Like it was, angry. Or afraid, she said. They sat in silence, the stars blinking to life above them. Somewhere beyond the marshes, an owl hooted. But Johnny couldn't stop hearing that other scream. Metallic, furious, sentient. The next morning, news started leaking. An anonymous post on a niche biology forum described an undocumented avian specimen released from a sealed artifact found off the Gulf Coast. Within hours, conspiracy theories erupted online. Lost civilizations, secret government labs, even alien speculation. Valerie swore no one from her team had leaked anything, but the feather photo had somehow surfaced. Panic didn't spread. Curiosity did, and with it, pressure. By the second day, reporters had staked out near Johnny's dock. He waved them off, refused interviews, but they kept coming. A drone buzzed overhead once, but a stern warning from a sheriff's deputy sent it back. That evening, Valerie returned, this time with an official from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. His name was Agent Craig Donovan. Tall, no nonsense, and equipped with an unblinking stare, he introduced himself with a badge and a handshake that lingered too long. Mr. Merrill, I understand you came across a classified biological anomaly. He began without preamble. Didn't know it was classified when it screamed in my kitchen. Johnny replied dryly. Donovan didn't laugh. He simply looked at the cage, then at Johnny. We'd like to take this into custody for federal analysis. It's no longer just a regional discovery. Valerie bristled. He has a right to keep it. It was recovered in public waters. And you don't have jurisdiction unless this is a national security matter. It might be, Donovan said. We're not ruling anything out. Reluctantly, Johnny agreed to let them borrow the cage for 48 hours. They swore it would be returned unharmed. But something about the way Donovan held it, like it was evidence in a crime, left a sour taste in Johnny's mouth. 2 nights later, he received a call. Not from Donovan, not from Valerie. It was from a man who wouldn't give his name, speaking in a clipped tone, asking, "What else did you find?" Johnny was stunned. Who is this? But the man had already hung up. That night, he didn't sleep. By morning, things escalated further. A video appeared online, shaky and grainy, but unmistakable. A silhouette of a bird soaring over a pine ridge near East Point, Florida, its wings iridescent, eyes glowing faintly in the dusk. It let out a scream, captured faintly by the phone mic, a long, sharp shriek that matched exactly what Johnny had heard. Now the world was listening. Within hours, scientists from across the country arrived. Journalists, cryptid hunters, even treasure seekers. Everyone wanted a glimpse of the cage, of Johnny, of the bay where it had all begun. Valerie tried to manage the chaos, but it was like holding back the tide with a paper cup. One evening, she pulled Johnny aside. "Uncle, we have to talk." He nodded, silently following her inside. They didn't return the cage. "What?" "I've called, emailed, even filed a request with internal channels. They're stalling. Something's going on. And now the sightings are increasing. 4 in the last 2 days, all across the panhandle." Johnny leaned forward. "You think it's calling others?" Valerie didn't answer right away. "I think the cage wasn't a prison. It was a seal. A chill ran down Johnny's spine. What did we let out? Later that week, a university team analyzing the feather made a new discovery. The structure wasn't just avian, it carried traits of bioluminescence and electroreception, abilities seen in deep-sea creatures, not birds. It meant this creature had adapted in complete isolation, possibly underground or in places no human had yet explored. That raised an even more chilling theory. What if the cage hadn't just preserved the bird, but protected the world from it? That idea spread like wildfire across forums and social media. People began speculating that the Tursalis hawk wasn't just rare, it was dangerous, supernatural, cursed. And still, the sightings continued. One farmer claimed it had landed on his silo, burned a ring into the metal, and screamed before taking off. A couple driving through the Everglades swore it chased their car for 5 miles. A child in Mobile, Alabama, drew a picture of a sky monster with fire eyes that matched descriptions perfectly. Valerie warned Johnny not to talk to the press anymore. Whatever this is, it's not done. And Johnny knew she was right, because 3 nights later, he found a second cage. This one wasn't golden, it was bronze, simpler, older, buried under a patch of reeds near his dock. It had the same symbols, and inside, something moved. This story is far from over. What do you think is really going on here? Was the Tursalis hawk sealed away for a reason? Or is it part of something even bigger? And what does it mean that a second cage has now appeared? Leave your thoughts in the comments, and tell us where you're watching from. This mystery might be global, and your insight could be the key to unlocking it. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe for the next update, and hit the bell so you don't miss what happens when Johnny decides what to do with the second cage. Johnny didn't sleep that night. He sat on the edge of his dock with a flashlight clutched in one hand and the second cage cradled in a milk crate beside him. The bronze was tarnished with age, darker than the first. Its bars were thicker, rougher, the symbols more deeply engraved, as if someone had carved them in a hurry or with fury. This one felt heavier too, though it was the same size. Inside, the shape was faint, shifting now and then, just enough to let him know it was alive. He hadn't told Valerie yet. He didn't want more men in black suits showing up, treating him like a delivery boy for monsters. He needed time to think, to breathe, to understand what it meant that the sea had offered him a second chance, or perhaps a second warning. Around 3 a.m., he heard the screech again, far off, high above, different from the first time. This one sounded like a response. It chilled him. The next morning, he wrapped the cage in a wool blanket and brought it into his shed, locking it behind 3 bolts and an old freezer. He wasn't going to open this one, not yet. Instead, he called Valerie and asked her to come alone. She did, arriving before noon with a look on her face that said she hadn't slept either. "I need to show you something," he said, no preamble. She followed him in silence to the shed, and when he pulled back the tarp and opened the door, she stopped cold. The moment she saw it, she stepped back. "There's another one." He nodded. "This isn't a coincidence, Uncle. This is deliberate. Like someone or something is planting them. I found it right near the shore. The same spot, buried shallow, like it hadn't been there long." Valerie approached slowly. Her fingers hovered above the bars but didn't touch. "It's different. You see that? These marks? They're deeper, almost violent. And this one's locked tighter. Look, the clasp, it's fused with corrosion." Johnny's voice dropped. "There's something inside." Valerie didn't ask how he knew. She could feel it too. A soft movement, a shudder, like breath. She straightened and backed away. "We have to take this to containment, proper facilities." "No," Johnny said more firmly than she expected. "We're not giving this one up. Not until we know what it is." Valerie stared at him. "You saw what happened with the first, the fallout, the government getting involved. We don't even know what that thing was, what it is now. I don't think this one wants to fly away screaming," Johnny said, staring at the cage. "I think this one wants something else." That thought hung between them like a storm cloud. 2 hours later, Valerie arranged for 2 of her most trusted colleagues to drive in quietly. Dr. Mandel returned, this time with a portable scanning device, and Lara, the quiet researcher, brought a sealed mobile case designed for wildlife transport. Johnny refused to let them take the cage just yet. He let them examine it inside the shed, on his terms. Mandel's scans showed elevated magnetic activity inside the object. far higher than what had been recorded with the first cage. It wasn't just emitting a signal, it was absorbing something. Lara detected slight radiation, not harmful, but unusual. "There's a decay signature," she whispered, "like something inside is reacting to the outside world." They debated opening it. Johnny shot that idea down quickly. "I opened the first one without knowing what was inside. Not again. Not without answers." Valerie agreed. "Let's start with the materials, the symbols. Maybe they tell us something." That night, Johnny lay awake listening to the wind. And at 2:47 a.m., the power in his house cut out. Total blackout. He rushed to the window. The street was still lit. Only his house was dark, the shed in the back completely unlit. He grabbed a flashlight and moved fast. His boots hit the wet grass, crunching with every step. He swung the beam toward the shed and stopped cold. The door was open. He hadn't left it open. He ran. Inside, the cage was still there, but the blanket had been torn, and the symbols on the cage, they were glowing, faintly, red, and worse. The creature inside was awake. It moved deliberately now, slowly, like it knew it was being watched. The shape was larger than he'd thought. Not bird-like, not clearly anything, just a mass that occasionally bristled with twitching movement. The symbols pulsed brighter with each shift. Johnny backed out, slammed the door, bolted it shut. He stood there for nearly 10 minutes, heart pounding, flashlight shaking in his grip. Whatever was in that cage, it wasn't meant to fly away. It was meant to stay inside. The next morning, Valerie returned with news. The original cage had not been returned to her lab. It had vanished in transit. The agents who signed it out claimed they never received it. It simply disappeared between facilities. And the sightings? They were escalating. A group of hikers near the Apalachicola National Forest had found a dead deer, completely drained of blood, its eyes burned out. No tracks. Just one long scorched feather near the carcass. Valerie brought Johnny a new piece of information too, a photo from a museum archive in Quito, Ecuador. It showed a mural, almost completely faded, depicting a golden cage flanked by two winged shapes, one light, one shadowed. The mural was labeled El Equilibrio de las Alas, the balance of wings. Legend said the cages had been crafted not by people, but by something older, keepers of the air who feared what they had created. Two cages, two beings. One of them now flew free. The other was still in Johnny's shed. Lara suggested they move the second cage to a secure site under their control. Valerie hesitated. "I don't think we should move it at all," Johnny said. "I think it's already connected. To the land, to the other one, maybe to me." Valerie shot him a look. "What do you mean?" "I keep hearing it, not out loud, just like a hum. When I close my eyes, like it's calling, asking. Johnny, if it's reaching you, then I need to know what it wants." That night, Johnny stood in the shed alone. He placed a tape recorder on the workbench and hit record. Then he sat on a stool, placed his hands on the cage, and whispered, "I don't know what you are. I don't know why you're here, but I'm listening." For over an hour, nothing happened. Then the light in the bulb above flickered. The cage warmed beneath his palms, and the symbols flared red again. He didn't hear a voice exactly, but something entered his mind. Not words. Impressions. Darkness. Cold. Silence. Then light. A scream. Separation. Two forces torn apart. A warning. One must never fly free while the other remains sealed. Balance broken as chaos born. The symbols pulsed, dimmed. Johnny opened his eyes and looked at the recorder. The tape had stopped. Out of tape? No. It was melted. He stumbled out of the shed, breathing heavily. He didn't sleep that night. By morning, Valerie found him on the porch, eyes bloodshot. "It's not a bird," he said without preamble. "Not like we think. It's something more. They're opposites, those two things. One of them's free now, and it's going to burn through the world looking for the other." "And if it finds it?" Valerie asked. "I don't think they're meant to be together, but they're also not meant to be apart." She stared at him, horrified. "Like a cosmic balance?" He nodded slowly. Behind them, the shed door creaked. "And inside the cage," the creature whispered, "the world was changing. The wind that morning was strange, restless and warm, sweeping across the bay like a breath exhaled from something vast and unseen. Johnny felt it before he opened his eyes, the pressure in his chest, the subtle weight in the air. like the tide itself had shifted in some way that no compass could measure. Valerie had stayed the night on the couch, just in case. She woke with a start when Johnny burst through the front door and headed straight for the shed. "What is it?" she called, rubbing her eyes. "Something's changed," he said, already halfway across the yard. Inside the shed, the cage was glowing again, but not red this time. It flickered gold, brief pulses like a heartbeat. The shape inside moved differently now, less restless, more deliberate, like it had sensed something, a shift. "I think it knows the other one is close," Johnny said as Valerie stepped in behind him. "But how? It could be hundreds of miles away by now. We've got reports from Tallahassee, even up into Georgia." He shook his head. "No, that thing, it's not just moving randomly, it's searching." Valerie frowned. "Then we're on a countdown. To what, I don't know." They spent the next 2 days poring over every detail, every symbol, every map, every ancient journal and fragment that had come to light since the cage was first discovered. One recurring theme emerged: separation and balance. Two forces, bound in containment, released only at great peril. A pattern began to form. Valerie's friend Lara tracked regional seismic anomalies, small ones, centered strangely along waterways and cave systems. Each occurred within 12 hours of a bird sighting. The tremors weren't destructive, but they resonated at the same frequency as the energy readings from the cage. "That's not coincidence," Lara muttered. "It's reacting. These creatures, they're not just mythological. They're integrated into the environment, maybe into the very geology." "You're saying they're part of the Earth?" Johnny asked. "Maybe not part of it," she replied, "but bound to it, like a key in a lock." Meanwhile, Johnny noticed something new. The more time he spent near the cage, the clearer his dreams became. Not dreams, visions. He began to see what he called memories that weren't his. Ancient temples surrounded by jungle, cities carved into cliffs, always the same pair of cages, one golden, one bronze, resting on twin pedestals. Every time the golden one opened in the dream, fire erupted. Every time the bronze one opened, silence followed. "What if they're not enemies?" Johnny whispered to Valerie one morning. "What if they're balance incarnate? You mean like yin and yang?" "Maybe, or more like pressure and release. One can't exist for long without the other." The question that haunted them now was, should they open the second cage? Dr. Mandel returned from the university lab with chilling news. "We analyzed that melted tape recorder. The magnetic burn wasn't caused by heat. It was electromagnetic, stronger than any device we've seen. That cage doesn't just contain a creature, it generates energy. A lot of it." He looked around the room at everyone present. "If you open that second cage, you might cause a disruption we can't predict. But if we don't," Valerie said, "the first one might tear through the country trying to find it." Johnny stared at the bronze cage. The symbols had dimmed again, as if it was waiting, listening. "I think we're missing something," he said. "I think we need to go where it started." "The bay?" Valerie asked. "No," he said. "Deeper." They charted a path back to the spot where Johnny first pulled up the golden cage. That's where they began. It took 3 days of sonar scans, dive teams, and bad weather. But finally, on a quiet morning, their equipment pinged off something metallic buried beneath layers of sediment. The divers descended. What they found stunned everyone. An archway, circular, rusted with time, half buried in silt, with the same symbols carved into its edge. Next to it, a stone platform, and on that platform, the clear imprint of 2 cages. Only one was missing, the other was gone, taken, removed. Johnny stood at the edge of the boat, looking down at the images transmitted from below. "It was deliberate," he murmured. "Someone brought them here, hid them. Maybe they were separated to protect us," Valerie whispered. "Maybe we just triggered what they worked so hard to prevent." Back on land, Johnny returned to the cage. He placed both hands on it. He waited, and once again, the voice, not words, but thoughts, flowed into him. Flight, fire, balance broken. Not safe, not yet. He opened his eyes and said, "We're not supposed to open it until the other stops flying." "Then we have to trap it," Valerie said. "But how do you trap something that's barely real, that can fly at sonic speeds and scream down drones from the sky?" The golden creature had already proven elusive, intelligent, and possibly aware of who had set it free. That's when the idea came. Use the second cage as bait, not by opening it, but by exposing it. The golden one would sense the presence of its twin, come looking, and they'd be ready. Valerie arranged for a remote site in the forest near where the most recent sightings had occurred, a clearing with cameras, heat sensors, aerial drones, and a dozen backup generators. The cage was placed in the center, on a mirrored platform designed to amplify energy readings. The night was cold. The forest was silent. Then, shortly after 3 a.m., the screaming began. It was distant at first, then closer. The trees shook, birds fled. The sky cracked with wind. Then it appeared. The golden creature descended like lightning wrapped in feathers, wings arched, eyes burning. It didn't attack. It hovered, watching, judging. Johnny stepped forward, slowly, hands raised. He didn't speak. He didn't move beyond a slow breath. The creature landed. Its talons dug into the earth. It cocked its head toward the cage, toward its sibling, its twin, its balance. It didn't scream this time. It simply waited. Johnny whispered, "It's not here to destroy." But the cage began to tremble again, harder than ever before. It wanted to open, and somewhere far off in the trees, something else screamed. The watchers realized they hadn't lured the golden one alone. Something else was coming. Something older. Something angrier. Johnny turned. It's not just two of them. Everyone froze. From the edge of the forest came a third sound. Rasping, low, bone deep. And in that moment, the golden creature leapt skyward with a roar. Not out of fear, but readiness. The second cage pulsed, and the ground began to shake. What do you think is happening here? Could there be more than two of these creatures? And if so, what is the true purpose of the cages? Let us know in the comments. Also, if you're enjoying this mystery, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe for more unbelievable stories, and click the bell so you never miss an update. Tell us where you're watching from. We'd love to know how far this mystery is reaching. The clearing was no longer still. The ground pulsed beneath their feet, rhythmic and ancient, as if the earth itself were remembering something buried deep within its veins. The golden creature remained aloft, circling overhead in sharp, deliberate arcs. Its eyes flashed toward the forest's edge, where the trees had begun to sway, not with the wind, but with something far heavier, something walking. Johnny turned slowly, feeling it before he saw it. A silhouette emerged from the darkness, taller than a man, cloaked in thick black feathers that absorbed the moonlight. Its wings were jagged and skeletal, dragging along the forest floor as it moved. Where the golden bird had shimmered with life, this one radiated decay. Its eyes were hollow, twin voids that didn't reflect light but devoured it. Its talons left scorched marks in the earth, and though it made no sound, its presence screamed. Valerie gasped. "That's not the bronze creature, that's something else." Lara stepped back, fear etched across her face. "It's the imbalance." Dr. Mandel's voice trembled. "The golden one was sealed. The bronze one is the counterweight. But this is what happens when balance is broken." Johnny felt it in his bones, the terror of ancient memory. The thing before them wasn't part of the original balance. It was the consequence. A third force born not of nature, but of rupture, the shadow between opposites. The golden creature shrieked and dove, claws extended, light blazing from its feathers. The two collided in midair with a force that shattered tree limbs and sent a shockwave across the clearing. Sparks flew. Dirt rose in a cyclone. The golden one was fast, precise, screaming with a sound like wind over a canyon. But the dark one was unrelenting. It lashed with wings that cracked like thunder. It screeched without a mouth. And when its claws struck, they left trails of dying light across the air, like stars being pulled into a black hole. The bronze cage vibrated violently now, rattling against the platform. Valerie rushed forward. "It's reacting to both of them." Johnny gritted his teeth. "It's not just reacting, it's resonating like a tuning fork. It's pulling them together." The golden creature was thrown back, crashing into the far trees with a burst of golden feathers. The dark thing descended toward the cage, its body unraveling slightly at the edges like smoke given shape. And then, the bronze cage opened on its own. No one touched it. The latch simply clicked. The door swung wide. And what emerged was not another bird. It was something more, not just feathers, but scales. Not just light, but echo. The creature inside unfolded itself like a forgotten memory. Wings layered with shifting colors, eyes that changed shape with every blink. Its presence brought stillness, not silence, but equilibrium. It rose into the air with effortless grace, and the battle stopped. The Golden One paused mid-strike. The shadow being froze in place. They all turned toward the third, and in that moment, time seemed to slow. A great hum filled the air, a sound so low it vibrated in their ribs and echoed in their blood. The third being didn't fight, it didn't scream. It simply hovered between the two, its wings extended, one toward the golden, one toward the shadow, and they obeyed. The golden creature folded its wings and drifted down beside the third, trembling. The shadow creature, resisting, shook violently, but then sagged as if a weight had been placed on its chest. It hissed, but retreated, back into the trees, back into the dark. And then the third creature looked at Johnny, only Johnny, and in his mind he heard a single word, restore. Then all three vanished, gone, not in flight, not in speed, just gone. The wind died instantly. The trees stilled. The earth stopped humming. Valerie stepped forward, breathless. What just happened? Johnny turned, eyes still wide. We weren't meant to open either. Not until the world could remember what came with them. Dr. Mandel slowly approached the empty cage. The symbols had faded completely. The metal no longer vibrated. It was just a box now. It's over, he whispered. But Johnny wasn't so sure. In the weeks that followed, sightings stopped. The tremors ended. No more scorched earth, no more screams. The original golden cage was never found. The bronze one was placed into a research vault, though Johnny suspected it had already served its purpose. And Johnny? He went back to fishing. But some mornings, just as the sun crests the horizon, he looks out toward the bay and swears he sees a shape in the sky. A glint of light, a flicker of movement, then nothing. A reminder. That balance is not something you find. It's something you fight to keep. So what do you think was really inside those cages? Were they creatures? Or something far more ancient? Guardians of balance? Or forces from another world? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We want to hear your theories. And if this story sent chills down your spine, don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more unbelievable true tales, and hit that bell icon so you never miss what's coming next. Also, let us know where you're watching from. We're tracking sightings, and your location might help us understand just how far this mystery truly reaches, because who knows, the next cage might already be near you.